Welcome back. She has written about living the charmed life and is universally known for her coaching on well-being and personal growth. But now Victoria Moran has tackled a very different issue: what to do if you are fat, broke, or lonely. Thank you so much for joining us this morning, Victoria.
Thank you.
I have to say that's one of the catchiest titles for a book I've heard in a long time. But looking at you, I think to myself, what can this woman know about any of those things?
Well, when my editor actually came up with the idea, he said, we have this great title, and I was waiting for a beautiful, gentle title, because my other titles are like that. You know, I have Creating a Charmed Life and Lit from Within. And he said, Fat, Broke, and Lonely. And I thought, I am not. And then I thought, wait a minute, I have been. All of them, and sometimes all at once. So we negotiated the no more for a book title, and I could do it.
So you have been all of those. Can you tell me all at one time? Or?
Well, sometimes. I really think that fat, broke, and lonely, those are ugly words. Those are really putting it out there. But when you think about what they mean, it is kind of the modern American default. It's things that we're either struggling with or we're afraid that we're going to be struggling with. We tend to obsess over one or more of them. But when my editor first said that phrase to me, fat, broke, and lonely, my first thought, once I got over being insulted that he thought maybe I would know about those things, was emptiness on the inside. The idea that there is this place in us that just is the enoughness place, and we're feeling not good enough, like we don't just measure up. So it's so easy to either reach for food or go on another diet or get another credit card or decide we're going to swear off. It's just all the extremes, but if we fill that empty hole inside, the other stuff tends to take care of itself.
So that's what they all have in common. If you're suffering from one of these three things, let's say you're in debt but have lots of friends and fat, or let's say you're just one of the two or three.
You know, I think this book could have been called Drunk, Bummed, and Dissed, or Starving Myself, Scared to Death, and Sleeping Around. It's all the things that people do to try to feel better. So in my own experience, fat was the first thing I had to deal with. I was a chubby kid. My dad was a diet doctor. My mother worked in these, what they used to call reducing salons, with the belts and the rollers that we sometimes see in vintage commercials, but they were deadly serious in their day. So I was a fat kid, bad for business, struggled with that for 30 years, all through my childhood, adolescence. When my parents were no longer putting me on diets, I put myself on diets. And what finally changed was the day that I thought, you know what? I may never be thin, but I don't have to be in bondage to this thing. And that turned it all around, and I also became thin.
And in your book, you talk a lot about personal responsibility, sort of taking control of these issues in your life or dealing with the emptiness. But you also don't let sort of the culture at large off the hook. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, this is a very difficult place and time to live, to not have to deal with some of these issues. I mean, with the food, it's completely schizophrenic. We've got fast food on every corner, and yet we're all supposed to be really thin. With the money, we're supposed to give the impression of having everything, of being rich. Just okay is not good enough. Now we're supposed to be rich. And yet, we're also being given these credit card offers. You have been approved, whether you have any money or not. I mean, I got one of those credit card offers, a gold card, addressed to Aspen Moran, who is my dog. So it's really out of control. And even with the loneliness, I mean, loneliness is the human condition. And yet, we're given the idea that if we don't have all of these really fancy friends, and of course, the perfect life mate, then there's something wrong with us. And you know what? It's just life. Sometimes we're going to cycle through phases where we're in a place and a time where we've got all kinds of great people around us, and then we might be transferred, or we might decide to go to school somewhere where we don't know a soul. And it's just different phases of life.
And getting back to what you said about credit cards, you're pretty harsh when it comes to credit cards. You don't think there's a place for them at all.
No, I do. And in this time and age, most people need a credit card. But I don't know anybody of any economic strata or any kind of lifestyle who can't get by on a credit card that they pay off every month and a debit card for backup. The people that have 15 credit cards usually have them because 14 are maxed out. So I think we have to get really serious about credit and look at it the way our grandparents and great-grandparents looked at it, as a last resort. Certainly debt that is covered, something like a house or a car, this is secure. cleared, no problem. But in terms of just spending a credit card to have lunch and then pay that bill in a month, if you pay it at all, that just doesn't feel right. I think it contributes more to the empty hole of thinking, oh my gosh, I'm in the red, am I ever going to get out?
And you give some more financial advice, telling people to put away 10% of their paycheck every month for savings, which I totally understand. But you also advise them to put away another 10% for charity. And I think I'm wondering, well, if I'm in debt and I'm taking 20% off of my paycheck already before I've covered my expenses,
right.
Is that going to be difficult to get?
Well, that's certainly a goal. If you're in debt, if you're in some kind of serious financial trouble, then you need to get some help for that, either from a financial professional or a nonprofit organization like Debtors Anonymous. They can really help you get that taken care of, and it's not so scary when you've got some help. But once you're on the kind of financial footing where you have a little bit of the kind of elastic waist syndrome where you've got some extra, it is so wonderful when you look at the first 10%, that's mine. That's mine to keep. That's not for the mortgage. That's not for anybody. Sure. That's mine. That's the money you put away. And the other 10%, you know, I just look at that as the money that belongs to God. 10% that comes to me isn't really mine. It's to put out there in the world and make things better. Now, if you're really in debt or things are really bad, start with 1%, because as long as you're able to give, you always feel like you have enough, and psychologically, that'll help you make more money.
And you talk about, in your book, creating an atmosphere of abundance, where giving then creates, you get back from the world.
Yeah, and if you look historically, the people who have been regular givers tend to do very well. I saw something called Ledger A that John D. Rockefeller kept from the time he was a little kid, and he always gave away 10% of his money, starting giving to his church and then giving on and on. So when he was a little boy, you could see that he wrote, received from father, 0.10, given to church, 0.01. By the end of his life, he'd given away $750 million. Now, I said this once in one of my talks, and somebody from the back yelled out, and that was when $750 million was real money.
Of course, now it's not, right? Thank you for joining us, Victoria Moran, author of Fat, Broke, and Lonely No More. And thank you for watching. You're watching Good Morning America Now.